Good evening. I'm Mario Alioto, the board chair of the Bay Area Sports Hall of Fame. I'm also the executive vice president of business operations for the San Francisco Giants. It was October 17th, 1989 at 5:04 p.m. when the world's biggest sporting event and the world's biggest news event happened at the same place at the same time, right behind me where Candlestick Park used to stand. We were here for Game 3 of the 1989 World Series between the Oakland A's and the San Francisco Giants. We all remember where we were that night when the world changed and the ground started to shake. Let's take a look back at a quick video to bring us back to 1989.
The pregame warm-up for Game 3 was winding down when the event took place that would change this series' place in history forever. Fans, media, and players were simply going about their business. Then, earthquake. For 15 seconds, the stadium shook, and in response, many fans first let out a collective roar of celebration. Everybody began comparing notes about the natural phenomenon that had struck the national pastime. But in time, news began to trickle in. The Bay Bridge, the very symbol of the series, had collapsed in mid-span. What's more, there was a major fire burning in the Marina District. Then, tragically, word came that Interstate 880 had collapsed, crushing more than a mile's worth of cars beneath it. Clearly, there was no way this game could go on. What followed was the strange sight of baseball players in the midst of a World Series reduced to everyman status. Quietly and in orderly fashion, Candlestick began to empty. It had taken just 15 seconds for baseball to become the furthest thing from everybody's mind. For now, there was real fear, for family and for friends.
Our issue is really a modest one in light of the great tragedy that's hit this area.
Okay, let's revisit some of those memories from 1989. We have a great lineup this evening. Dave Stewart, the World Series MVP from the Oakland A's, is here. Will Clark, Giants first baseman and National League Championship Series MVP from 1989, is also here. And former San Francisco Mayor Art Agnos, who had to navigate our city through a very difficult period of time, will join the panel as well, all moderated by Brian Murphy from the morning show on KNBR. The Bay Area Sports Hall of Fame is also proud to support the Boys and Girls Clubs of San Francisco and of Oakland. They are tonight's beneficiary. If you take a moment tonight to make a donation, 100% of the donations between now and the next 24 hours will benefit the Boys and Girls Clubs of San Francisco and of Oakland. Please go to bashof.org. That's BASHOF.org. And 100% of your donations this evening will be donated to the Boys and Girls Clubs of San Francisco and of Oakland. Also, I'd like to give a special thank you to our presenting sponsor, Bank of America. The Bank of America has been our presenting sponsor for all three BASHOF Online events, and their support is appreciated by everyone associated with the Bay Area Sports Hall of Fame. Also, a special thank you to Alaska Airlines. Stick around after our program tonight, and you might have a chance to win 2 tickets on Alaska. And now I'd like to introduce to you the San Francisco and East Bay president of Bank of America, Joya McCarthy. Joya, over to you.
Thank you, Mario. I'm excited to be with you all for our third Bay Area Sports Hall of Fame Online, a look back at the 1989 World Series. This evening, we will reflect on a monumental game with all-star panelists. And as we look back at a time when San Francisco was impacted by a natural disaster, we also saw how we San Franciscans came together to help rebuild our incredible city, similar to what we're facing today as we begin to safely reopen. Bank of America is a proud partner of the Bay Area Sports Hall of Fame. We have a similar vision and a long-standing tradition of community and sports. And as the official bank of the Major League Baseball, we know the impact that can be made with sports as a platform. It's why we are the presenting sponsor of youth baseball programs on both sides of the Bay. The Junior Giants and A's Play Ball. These programs offer thousands of youth and their families free access to baseball skills and drills, while more importantly promoting health, education, and character development. Also doing incredible work in our community are the San Francisco Boys and Girls Club and the Oakland Boys and Girls Clubs. They provide programs and services that are tailored to the needs of today's youth. And I encourage you to click on the Donate Now button on your screen to show your support. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the Boys and Girls Club of San Francisco had 4 locations that have never closed its doors, and they served over 4,000 meals to the community in spring of 2020. They were the only citywide program that opened on the first day of school, with most programs not opening until mid-September. They also ran virtual programs across the city. Between in-person and virtual, they were able to reach over 800 individual youth. The Boys and Girls Club of Oakland have also been in hybrid mode since November of 2020, serving student pods at each of their 3 facilities, offering distance learning support during the school day, complete with meals and snacks, while continuing to offer virtual services to the balance of their enrollment. These local nonprofits are doing tremendous work, and for our youth and for our families. And together today we can advance economic mobility and social programs in our community. I would now like to welcome this evening's moderator, Brian Murphy, co-host KMBR's Murph and Mac, the morning show on KMBR 680. Brian's impressive career in sports media includes writing for the San Francisco Chronicle, the Los Angeles Times, San Francisco Examiner, Santa Rosa Press, Democrat, ESPN.com, Yahoo Sports, ranging from his beat days covering the 49ers to his NFL and PGA Tour columns for the national websites. He joined KMBR in 2004, and the Murph and Mac Show in 2017 was named amongst the top 10 best sports radio shows in America by Radio Inc. magazine. Take it away, Brian.
Thank you, Joya. My name is Brian Murphy from KMBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader, the Murph and Mac Show, where we get to talk about Bay Area sports every day. We don't get to talk about things as cool as this every day. One of the most epic occurrences in the history of Bay Area sports, if not all of the United States sports, the 1989 World Series, featuring our very own San Francisco Giants and the champion Oakland A's. What a panel we have assembled. We're going to get to you guys in just 1 second. Just a few housekeeping items here. The Bay Area Sports Hall of Fame, San Francisco Chamber of Commerce Zoom panel that we're all happy to have you on. If you do want to chat with us, you will be promoted to login. If you have trouble, email support@howlive.tv, and a team is standing by to help you. And of course, I want to encourage you to support the Bay Area Sports Hall of Fame and to donate. We have a big Donate Now button on your screen. And by clicking, this is very important, you help directly support at-risk youth. And BASHOF is proud to partner with our special beneficiaries this time around, the Boys and Girls Clubs of San Francisco and Oakland. So that's a pretty cool thing to donate to. And for the next 24 hours, all the money you give, 100%, goes to the Boys and Girls Clubs of San Francisco and Oakland. That's what we're here for. Also, feel free to click around on your howlive.tv screen, and by clicking the logos listed, you can learn more about the BASHOF, the SF Chamber of Commerce, and the incredible sponsors of tonight's program. So, to our panelists, you guys ready to talk some ball and some history? Let's do it. I suppose we have to start with the champion first. He's the World Series MVP of the 1989 World Series. A huge BASHOF welcome to Dave Stewart. They call him Stu. They're not booing Stu. They're saying Stu. Good morning, Dave. How are you?
I'm doing okay, and thanks very much for having me on and having me be a part of this. Thank you very much.
Now, as I say, when you look on your screen and you see this gentleman I'm going to introduce next standing in the batter's box, what do you think when you see Will Clark step in a batter's box?
Don't make any mistakes. That's the first thing I think of. He can damage you and hurt you in so many ways. You know, when you sit and you talk about the lineup that you're going to be facing, you have to pick a guy that if things start to get a little scary. Who do you not want to be the guy to do the damage? Well, he was the guy, and that's the truth. Yeah, Kevin Mitchell was in that lineup, but Kevin Mitchell was right-handed. Will was left-handed. I always looked at Will as being a better average hitter, a guy that hit for average, and I looked at him a guy that did a great job in the clutch, and so I would take my chances with Kevin over Will anytime.
All right, good stuff. Well, Will, with that introduction now, you must be feeling pretty good because we're going to introduce a guy, career 303 hitter, 2,176 hits. That was a very special year. We're going to visit 1989, the National League Championship Series MVP, going 13 for 20 with 2 homers against the Cubs. And then, of course, winning the National League Championship. So, Will, thanks for joining us here on the Bay Area Sports Hall of Fame Chamber of Commerce Zoom. So welcome, first of all. And second of all, I'd return the favor. What do you think when you see Dave Stewart on your screen here?
Well, I tell you what, first off, thank you for having me and being a part of this panel with Dave and Art Agnos. But, having to face Dave, we faced him a ton, whether it be in spring training, because we played the Oakland A's a lot, or then during the World Series. And then also got a chance to face Stu when he was with Toronto. It is amazing when you step into a batter's box against a true professional that is very polished at his craft and is one of the elite pitchers of our era. And, it was my pleasure to face him. The one thing about that Oakland A's team, Stu was the figurehead. He was the leader of that team, especially on the pitching staff. And, they executed extremely well in the 89 playoffs all the way through the series. And that's why they became the eventual World Series champions.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to get into it too. All sorts of memories there for both of you guys. It was a great, great, great year. And Dave, I should mention 16 years in the big leagues, 168 wins, a long, robust career. And then we have the guy who probably couldn't hit Dave Stewart or get Will Clark out, but he sure ran the city. He ran the city and county of San Francisco through one of its most treacherous times, and we needed leadership, and we got it from our final panelist, the 39th mayor of the city and county of San Francisco. Don't play him on a golf course for money. You will leave poorer. Okay. But more important, he was a fantastic and calm and composed leader in a time of crisis. So Mayor Art Agnos, welcome to the Bay Area Sports Hall of Fame 1989 World Series Zoom with Will Clark and Dave Stewart. How you doing, Mr. Mayor?
I'm doing just terrific. Thank you very much, Brian. And it's indeed a privilege to be on this show with two historic stars, not only in the Bay Area, but in this country, because of their personal careers, their personal character, and also what they did in a very difficult time during the World Series. So I'm proud to be with them, and I'm proud to be with you, buddy, because you are what I call a switch hitter in the media. You're the best on radio when it comes to sports commentary and all the things that come with it, and you're the best in print. You write the greatest golf columns I've ever read, and miss that part, although you always tell me you write them, but I don't see them as much as I used to.
I know. Art. We could talk about that on the golf course too. But you're very kind. You're smooth. You must be pretty good at getting votes. You're very smooth, Mr. Magnos. There you go. Okay, so let's talk a little baseball, and then we'll get to October 17th. Okay, but let's set the stage first, guys. For a lot of kids out there who don't know, or for those of us who want to remember it, there's a path to get there. And Stu, I want to go back to you here. That 1989 A's team, I have it written down here. You guys won 99 games that year. The previous year, you had won 104 games. We're talking about the Ricky Henderson, Mark McGuire, Jose Canseco, Dave Stewart, Tony La Russa, Tony Phillips, rest in peace. This Oakland A's squad that you guys had. And my question to you is to take us into that mindset of that team going back in October of 89, having fallen short in October of 88. How much it consumed you guys, how driven you guys were, and what kind of mindset you had that whole season leading into October.
Well, we were beaten by the Dodgers in '88, and obviously we weren't expecting to be beaten by them. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Obviously they were a very, very good club. But what's special about baseball, and I say this all the time, is if you go out and you play the game right, you throw to the right bases, you pitch well, you defend well, and you hit in situations, any team can win on a given day. And the Giants and the Dodgers beat us, and so going into that off season and starting into spring training, I think we as a group, and this was great about playing with the guys that I played with, starting with our captain Carney Lansford. We all went into that spring training with the mindset that we were going to try to right the wrong that had taken place in '88, and just come out the gate as strong as we could in April and play through the season and let the chips fall where they may. But we felt we were a good team. We felt we were a very good team. We felt we were good in all departments, hitting, defense, and pitching. And so we wanted to make a reality of winning a championship in the '89 season.
There's no question. If we go from 104 wins to 99 wins, just to go through some of that lineup here: Terry Steinbach at catcher, McGuire at first, Tony Phillips at second, Walt Weiss, Mike Gallego at short. You mentioned Carney Lansford at third, the outfield of the all-time great Ricky Henderson, who we'll get into a little bit later because he's going to be honored this October. Dave Henderson, and of course, even future Giant Stan Javier was out there. And you guys had Dave Parker on that team. You're pitching, Mike Moore, Bob Welch, Storm Davis, Kurt Young, Dennis Eckersley. It just goes on and on and on. So on the other side, there's a National League club. And Will, this brings you guys in. And you, obviously, it's well documented among Giants fans. What you did in 1986 on your arrival changed Giants history. You guys, you got to like these kids in '86. You win the West in '87 to set a new benchmark. You don't go to the postseason in '88. You come into '89. What was it about that '89 team that put it all together? No Giants team had been to a World Series since 1962, Will, and yet you and Kevin Mitchell and the crew were able to do it. How'd you guys do that?
Brian, to kind of echo what Dave said, Dave was there in '88 and, they wanted to win it and they came up a little short. And in '89, they refocused themselves. And it's kind of the same way that we did in '89. '87, we won the West, as you said. '88, we had a bunch of, trades and stuff like that. So it took a little while for the team chemistry to kick in. But then '89, it seemed like, especially in spring training, everything sort of clicked. And we played really well all the way through the season. And then you go to the postseason, we played the Cubs. And coming into the World Series, we knew that, we were going to be facing, a very, very talented, Oakland A's team who had been there before, and they were hungry, just like we were. And, I said it kind of when I won the MVP of the NLCS. I said, how about that Bay Bridge World Series? And, at that time, it was the two best teams playing baseball to go into October and see who was going to be the World Series champion.
Now, before we get to Game 3, we got to go through Games 1 and 2. Stu, you get the ball in Game 1. What are you thinking of that Giants team now? I mean, what are you? In all honesty, you're looking at this lineup. We're talking about Kevin Mitchell, Brett Butler, Candy Maldonado, Robbie Thompson, Jose Uribe. What's your game plan going in against these guys? Because you wind up throwing a complete game in Game 1. How much respect did you have for that lineup, and what was your game plan in Game 1?
Well, I mean, my game plan was pretty much the same as it had been for years. It's crazy that people think that you get a scouting report and you do something different with each team that you play. I think if Will and those guys, if they had a scout report on me, they knew they were going to get a lot of fastballs. They knew that I threw a lot on the inside part of the plate, tried to get ahead of the count. With left-handed hitters, try to finish you off with a forkball. With right-handed hitters, try to finish you off with a fastball on the outer part of the plate. But I always try to establish hard inside on both right-handed and left-handed hitters. so that it would open up the outside part of the plate for me. And as I said, when I looked through the lineup, and I told myself, if I get into a situation, this is not going to be the guy that's going to hurt me. He's not going to make a difference in this game. And I picked Will Clark as that guy. He was not going to be the guy that was going to beat me in a situation. I could feel a whole lot better if I get beaten by somebody else. Excuse the outside noise. I could feel a whole lot better if I get beaten by somebody else. But Will wasn't going to be that guy.
Oh man, and well, you got it done in game one for sure. Will, your memories of going into Oakland, and there's Stu, and me can even fold in game two against Mike Moore too. The way the A's attacked you guys, were you guys a little taken aback by the success their pitchers had?
Not really, believe it or not. This game is based on pitching and defense, and Stu is a perfect example of that. Going in and facing the number one starter for the Oakland Athletics and facing him in game one in his home ballpark, you knew you had your work cut out for you. And, when you face a number one starter such as Dave, you're not going to get many mistakes. He is going to be very fine in what he does. And if he does make a mistake, you got to take advantage of it. And, as a, tip of the cap to him, he pretty much dominated us in game one and kind of set the tone for them.
He did. And so, okay, the first two games are done, but listen, it's a lot of ball left. The Giants get to go back to Candlestick Park, where the 56,000 Giants fans are going to be there for the first World Series in 27 years. It's October 17, 1989. It's a warm day. And here we go. Art Agnos, my question to you is, where were you at 5:04 p.m. on October 17th, 1989? And what is your crystal clear memory of that moment and the next several hours?
Well, I was a little late getting to the ballpark because I was working in City Hall and had to pick up my family to go to the ball game. So at 5 o'clock, we were just entering the parking lot. And at 5:04, obviously, we felt a shaking, but I thought that it was a flat tire. So I said to my bodyguard who was driving the mayor's car, I said, "Did we have a flat tire?" And she said, "No, I think we had a earthquake." I said, "Well, it wasn't too bad, was it?" So when I went into the ballpark itself, I thought that everything was copacetic until I got to the mayor's box up there, and the TV was on and showing the Bay Bridge that had the section of the Bay Bridge that had fallen in to the lower section. That's when I knew we had serious trouble. And at the same time, the police came and took me. It's the only to go back to the to City Hall and take command of the disaster center. It's the only time I've had a motorcade of about 15 motorcycles literally pushing people off the road so that I could get through to get to the emergency center to take charge of the response. So it was a traumatic time for the city and in part for me. When I got to the command center, we didn't have any helicopters then, and the FBI offered me their helicopter to get a sort of a bird's eye view of what was going on in the city by taking me up. And so that's when I got scared for the first time. When I saw the city from a couple of thousand feet up in the air in the helicopter, I got scared because I saw fires not only in the marina, but all over the city, a blackout. And I said, I've got some real trouble here. Went down, called for the National Guard, and started to go from there.
Wow. And we'll get more into that too, for sure. But I want to talk to Dave and Will about where they were when it happened. Will, where were you at 5:04 when it struck? 6.9 earthquake, the Loma Prieta quake. 63 people tragically lose their lives, over 3,700 injured. But at that time, where were you? Were you warming up? What were you doing?
Yeah, you know what, Brian? It was right before introductions, and we were out on the field running sprints like we do before the game starts, just to stretch out. And I had just got through running a sprint to center field, and turned around and heard a big roar, and I thought it was like it sounded like the F-15s flying over, and so I looked up. And right when I looked up, one of the light standards was just, I mean, it was just going boom, boom. And I was like, oh, this is not good. And about that time, the wave kind of came through the stadium, and it was very violent. I mean, it was real violent. So I kind of froze in place out there in center field until it passed through. And then by that time, I kind of made my way to the dugout. And Stu knows because, we had security, we had police officers everywhere around the dugout, and their radios were going crazy at that time. And, it took a few minutes to get all of the pieces put together. But they started talking about, as Mayor Agnos said, part of Bay Bridge had collapsed and the Nimitz had collapsed. And then there was a fire in the Marina District, and there were just a lot of things going on. And they said, Will, this is probably not going to happen today. And that's kind of where we left it until, the commissioner and everybody made the call, and then we got our families out the stands.
Wow, it's just an amazing moment. So, Dave, you had already pitched. Now, you weren't scheduled to pitch that day. So, I don't know, were you in the clubhouse or in the dugout? What was the Oakland view? Where were you, and what was your reaction when it happened?
I was actually in the clubhouse. I was goofing off with Dave Parker, and we were just in there joking and kidding like we often do before games. We were in the trainer's room, and then Harvey, the clubhouse manager, came over and he says, "Hey, we need to get you guys out of here." And as you know, the clubhouse is underneath the stadium at that old Candlestick, and so Harvey rushed us out. What's crazy is, we didn't know which way to go when he was rushing us out. We didn't know if he wanted us to go on the field or if he wanted us to go towards the parking lot. And so, but we eventually ended up going out on the field. And then right when we were going up, we didn't have any idea why we were being rushed out, because through all of this, he never said that there was an earthquake. And we couldn't feel it from where we were. And so once we got out on the field, as Will said, there's no mistaking the sounds of fear and confusion and panic. And you could hear it. By the time we got out on the field, there were a ton of police officers and highway patrolmen on the field and the walkie-talkies. And it was just an unbelievable sight. The light standards were still swaying. And we had heard word that some of the center field stands had crumbled and had fallen. And so, as best I can remember, those were the things that I witnessed at that time. It was unbelievable.
It's all very vivid. All you guys, all your memories are so you feel like we're right back there right now. But Mayor Agnos, now you have a city and county to deal with here, and you say you're scared in the helicopter. In addition to the lives and property that you had to worry about, you also had the World Series. And I know it sounds frivolous maybe, but it isn't. It's America's fall classic, and it's the Giants and the A's. So can you take us through maybe the 24 hours after 5:04 p.m. in terms of you have the marina burning, you have the Bay Bridge collapse, and you have America wondering what's happening to the World Series. How do you go through this checklist here?
Yeah. Frankly, the first 24 hours, I didn't worry a lot about the World Series. I had too much else going on, and I didn't really focus on it for several days until the commissioner called me. Everybody agreed that we couldn't continue, and the question was, when would we start again? And I got a message from the commissioner that after I think it was about 4 or 5 days when we had not resumed, we were still working on all of the recovery issues. I got a message from the commissioner that he wanted to meet with me about the resumption of the World Series. By the way, this story has never really been told. So this is the first for Bashoff. And so I agreed, and the meeting was held in Al Rosen's condominium in downtown San Francisco. And the people who were present there were obviously the commissioner, Bob Lurie, the owner of the Giants, and Corey Bush, as well as Al Rosen and myself. And it was kind of a tense meeting because the commissioner, Fay Vincent, who was kind of a rookie commissioner himself. As we all know, Bart Giamante had died earlier that year, and he had taken over. So I think he was very anxious to do a good job, and here he was in the middle of a catastrophe. So a lot of pressure on him as well. So he said to me, Mr. Mayor, we've got to start the World Series. It's been 4 days since the game 2, and we really need to think about when we're going to restart it. And I said, well, Commissioner, I said, I really can't give you a date to start yet because we're still trying to recover bodies in Oakland as well as here. We've got to check the stadium to make sure that Candlestick is ready for 60,000 plus people. And I can't get that done for a while because I've got too many other things going on. Well, he was a little upset at that because he wanted a time certain, and I just didn't have the capacity to tell him at that moment. So he said, I'd hate to be the first mayor in America to be the World Series canceled on his watch. I said, well, Commissioner, I am not going to be the first mayor in America who starts the World Series while we're still digging out bodies from the rubble in the East Bay where our opponents are coming from. So we need to give them the respect and time. He said, well, then maybe I'm going to have to move it to San Diego. Bob Lurie, who was sitting there, came out of his seat and looked at him in a way I have never, and I've gotten to know Bob Lurie pretty well over the years since then. I have never seen him or heard him talk like this. He says, over my goddamn body.
Wow.
And that was the end of the commissioner's thoughts about going to San Diego to finish the World Series. And he kind of slumped in his chair and said, well, what am I going to do? I said, I'll let you know as soon as we're ready because I want this to finish. It's important for our cities, Oakland and San Francisco, in order to demonstrate we are back, but we're not ready. So it took another 7 days. We finished the inspections of all of the facilities that the players and the fans were going to use. And we had finished. Mayor Wilson, Lionel Wilson, who's passed away, as we know, but at that time he told me he was ready, and he had finished his inspections of where they were looking for bodies and all those kinds of things, and so we were ready. And so I told the commissioner, we'll start on the 27th. I should have started on the 28th because maybe Dave would not have been as ready as he was on the 27th and killed us again. And that was how the World Series got started in that very tense moment where Bob Lurie told the commissioner, over my goddamn body, are we moving this World Series to San Diego?
Wow, great story, Mayor Agnos, and shout out to Bob Lurie, who's still going strong here in the city, and he got that World Series to Candlestick Park, but before it started again, Stu, this goes back to you, and this is, I mean, I know you what kind of person you are has been demonstrated through the years, and you don't do these things to get plaudits or compliments, but people should know how you spent that time going over to the East Bay, to the Cyprus Overpass and the Nimitz Freeway, and doing what you could to help. And maybe it will inspire somebody who hears your story here today to help in their community. But tell us about your decision to go try to help as much as you could on the front lines.
Well, as you know, the first night of the earthquake, um, we had to travel back, and most of us had driven over to ballpark, myself included. We were not allowed to go back in the clubhouse and shower, and so we were asked to just grab our stuff, get on the bus, whoever was on the bus or who had driven, and just make your way back over to the other side of the bay. Obviously, the Bay Bridge was shut down. The San Mateo Bridge was shut down, so we had to travel via the Dumbarton back across. To get from Candlestick Park all the way to the other side, I could have driven to Los Angeles in the same amount of time. It was about a 5 or 6 hour drive for us to get back over to the other side. Now, I lived in Emeryville, and Emeryville, for me, I'd have to go across that Cyprus structure that it now looked like an accordion had collapsed. And so I took the streetway to get to my place. My sister lived not far off from the Cypress, and so I wanted to check on my family, my sister. And when I went past her house, I saw that her house was, uh, it looked like somebody had knocked one side of it down. It was leaning. But not far from that, it seemed like the center of where the highway patrolmen and the firemen and everybody, it looked like that's where they had set up their camp to start helping people. I was still in my uniform at that time, and was allowed to walk in and just talk to the leadership there to find out if and what I could do to help um, in any way. And obviously, things that they didn't say, but food was needed because obviously they were going to be working around the clock and the hours were going to be long. Blankets and clothing and bedding for the people who had been displaced from their homes and didn't have any place to go. And so, I was fortunate. I was able to rally part of the community to donate and bring those things to the firemen and to the center where these things were happening. And until we decided to go to Arizona to play simulated games, um, you could find me there in the day and late at night because it was very close to my home. But even more importantly, it wasn't very, I wouldn't have been able to sleep anyway, knowing that it was just down the street from me, and knowing that there was something that I could possibly do to help. And so that's what I did until we went to Arizona.
Wow. Certainly one of the most memorable things of the entire story. 42 people perished in the Cyprus overpass collapse. So that was a great humanitarian gesture that you did, and hopefully people can be inspired by that and help in their communities. So, I mean, eventually we're going to get back to baseball, which is crazy, right? I mean, the A's went to Arizona. That was an interesting move. I believe the Giants did not. Can you take us through that? We go from October 17th to October 28th. What do you guys do? I mean, you're in limbo. You're hanging there. What happened?
Kind of what Dave said. You see the destruction and the loss of life, and you want to help out as much as possible. So I know that the Giants put together some community stuff that we did. I know myself personally, I went to help out, not only first responders, kind of like Dave was talking about, but also help out, the homeless because of the fires in the marina, et cetera, et cetera. So we went and served food to those people and brought them food, and tried to be as part of the community as much as possible. And, we stayed at Candlestick while they were doing construction. You could see the guys, as Dave had said before, there was damage out in center field. You could see them doing the construction, and then some of the other repairs that were being done. We stayed. We tried to keep it business as usual. and like Dave said, play inter squad games. They were fortunate enough to go down to Arizona. I think, Dave, if I'm not mistaken, I think you guys played maybe one of your instructional league teams or something like that, or did y'all just do?
No, no, it was strictly inter squad against each other. And
Okay.
I'll tell you a real quick story. Conseco and Dennis weren't the best of teammates, and we got in an inter squad game, and it's the first time I've ever seen an inter squad game where you purposely hit one of your teammates. That got us fired up.
So anyway,
That's-
so we spent the time at Candlestick, and then we would just wait, and like Mr. Agnos was talking about the commissioner coming out and giving us a day when we could resume. And when it was, we tried to put on our best face and go out there and play the Oakland A's as good as we could.
Mayor
Yeah,
Agnos
Brian.
now. Yeah, go ahead, Art. Yeah.
Now, Brian, I want to tell you my baseball get ready story. I was in the Marina Disaster Center there in the Marina Junior High School. They have a big playground there, and we had set up a place to help people connect with resources they may need to get back on their feet. And we had literally thousands of people there because the marina was so badly damaged. And so I'm walking through the playground one day, and I see this long, long line of people waiting to determine whether they could return to their homes and get valuable things like pictures of their babies and wedding rings and things like that were in these homes, many of which had collapsed. So about halfway back, about several hundred people back, I see this tall, thin, elderly man who I immediately recognize as Joe DiMaggio. And there's Joe DiMaggio standing in line like everybody else by himself. So I went up to him and I said, "Hello, Mr. DiMaggio. My name's Art Agnos. I'm the mayor. Is there anything I can do for you?" He said, "No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just waiting for my turn." I said, "Well, you can go to the head of the line." He says, "Oh, no, 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 no. I don't want to go to the head of the line. I'll wait my turn." I said, "Well, let me ask you something. He was 82 at the time, or roughly at that round in his 80s. I said, "Are you over 65? He laughs. He says, "Yeah, I sure am, by a lot." I said, "Well, anybody over 65 is being taken to the front of the line because we don't want them out in this heat." He said, "Well, in that case, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor." And I had the privilege of walking him up to the front of the line and getting him settled because he wanted to get back to his house. He had a lot of memorabilia there that he wanted to see if it was, still there. And we sent an escort with him, as we did with all the other elderly people, to rescue his wonderful memorabilia.
But that's a showstopper of a story right there. I just got to steer off the road for just a second and talk baseball. Will, did you ever meet Joe DiMaggio and talk baseball with him?
I did. I was fortunate enough to meet Mr. DiMaggio, and we got alone for about 5 minutes, and it's just absolutely amazing the knowledge that you can gain from those individuals. I mean, I was fortunate enough to have Willie Mays and Willie McCovey and Orlando Cepeda and Gaylord Perry and Juan Marichal, our living Hall of Famers at that time. I was available in spring training, and being able to talk to them and get as much information as possible is fantastic. But then when you meet a gentleman like Joe DiMaggio, it's pretty special. And I know, that would be very similar, like, Stu being around like a Sandy Koufax or something like that.
Stu, did you ever, I know Joe used to go to both A's and Giants games. So Stu, did you ever get a chance to meet Joe DiMaggio and talk baseball with him?
I never had the opportunity to meet Joe DiMaggio. And I got to tell you what, that would have been that probably would have been the end of my life if I had an opportunity to meet Joe. You know, early in my career, and I've told this story 1,000 times. My dad was worked for the Pacific Maritime. He was a longshoreman there in San Francisco, and he used to get tickets from the work from job and bring them home. And in 1962, he got tickets to a Pirates Giants game, and I got a chance to see Willie Mays, and didn't even pay attention against Roberto Clemente. But on that day, we waited several hours to get an autograph. My dad was determined for me to get an autograph from Willie Mays, and Willie Mays, and probably next to Jackie Robinson, is one of the most well-known and most influential black players amongst black communities. And so we waited hours and hours and hours, and he signed for hours and hours. We were probably second to last or last, but he signed every autograph. And that single day, that single moment, had an impact on my career for a lifetime. I never walked away from an autograph because of what Willie Mays displayed that day.
Wow, what a great story. And by the way, we should take a moment here at the San Francisco Chamber of Commerce before we wrap up here to wish a few weeks late the happiest of 90th birthdays to our living legend, one of the greatest living Americans, Willie Mays, still here, still at the ballpark, guys, on Friday night a few weeks ago. Giants got a win. What a sight to see. And the Giants got a win for him, too. So let's treasure him as long as we have these days. Okay, so we're going to bring it home here, guys. It's been just amazing to relive this. I feel like I'm back at Candlestick in 1989. Mayor Agnos, you're the one who finally gives the green light. Maybe tell us that final decision, maybe that, and getting back to the park for Game 3, how it felt, how surreal it felt, and how you felt about baseball resuming.
I felt really good about the World Series resuming because I had completed my checklist that was important for the recovery, and I wanted baseball to be a part of the completion of the World Series, to be a part of that recovery. And so when I called the commissioner, I said, we're ready. Everything checks out. And I think we can resume safely for the public, the fans, and obviously the players. So I said, this is the date that we'll be ready. And he was pleased. And by the way, even though we had a little tension between us during that time, he came through magnificently afterwards by having Major League Baseball be the biggest contributors to both cities in their recovery after the World Series was completed. So we were very grateful to him for that. And we started playing.
I wonder if you're ever around candlelight anymore. Are you thrown back to those days at the St. Francis Hotel, those press conferences by candlelight, right?
I know. No, I haven't been in that kind of candlelight anymore, but I got to tell you one more political story that involves me in my worst moment. Lionel Wilson was the mayor. As we know, he passed away a few years back, but he was a very proud and good mayor of Oakland, who was my counterpart, of course. And so when the World Series was first announced, they said, Mr. Mayor, to me, Mr. Mayor, are you going to bet with the mayor of Oakland? Now, keep in mind, I'm an old athlete. I like to trash talk. We do a lot of trash talking in politics, just like they do in baseball. So I said, no, I'm not going to bet with the mayor of Oakland. And the press said, well, why not? And I came up with, I'm a little embarrassed to say this, but I said, well, there's nothing in Oakland that I want. I got killed. And Lionel was so PO'd at me. He wouldn't talk to me. We'd have I kept saying, Lionel, I'm trash talking. That's it. He was a proud man, and rightly so. He wouldn't talk to me until I came. We met we were forced to be together in some mayoral thing after the earthquake. He sidles up to me and he says, "Would you like to have Dave Stewart in San Francisco now?" Killed me again.
Man.
Killed me again.
That's a good one.
But,
Hey, trash
made
talk
friends
works
after
both
that.
ways, right?
That's
Trash
right.
talk is a two-way street.
You got me.
Great story, Mayor Agnos. Fantastic. We'll kind of wrapping it up here. You guys go back. Unfortunately, the gentleman who's on the panel with us is on the mound again. The respite allows him to start games 1 and 3. He goes 7 innings this time. He's on his way to the World Series MVP. And you look back on it and you wish, gosh, you wish it had gone differently. But, I don't know. You tip your cap. You're thankful just for baseball to resume. What are your feelings in games 3 and 4?
Brian, I think you and I have talked about this in the past, but I mean, when you're an everyday player, and I guess it would be the same thing with Stu being a pitcher, you really have to look yourself in the mirror and you have to do some self-diagnosis and say, look, I either did really well that day or I did pitiful, and I need to improve things. Looking back on it after all of these years, we never ever during the course of a season have 10 days off. And so, getting it back in gear and kicking it in game shape, it was a little like spring training all over again. And the World Series kind of had lost a little bit of its luster. But then also, I am very much a realist. I can look myself in the mirror and say, hey, look, I gave it my all. But the gentleman that's on the panel with me and his teammates were better than we were. They went out there for 4 games in a row. They proved it, and they became the World Series champions because of that reason. And, like we talked about earlier, when you step into the batter's box and you face a guy like Dave Stewart, or you face a guy like Mike Moore or Dennis Eckersley, you know that you have your work cut out for you. And there in October, they were better than we were.
Well, graciously said, Will. And Dave, you get the final word because you were the last ones standing when it was all said and done. And your Game 3 performance, just a quick memory of that and how you bounced back and got that win. And then just that memory of jumping around with your teammates at first base at Candlestick Park after everything that had transpired.
Well, coming back to play, obviously, and you can tell by the mayor's story, we weren't even sure we were going to play. And once we knew we were going to play, then you kind of have to turn the switch on again. And, I had spent days, witnessing the work of our first responders and the communities and just witnessing everything. And your mind is a little confused at first for exactly what you're supposed to feel or how you're supposed to feel when they say we're going to play. But once you get it in perspective, and the only thing that made it feel good is that we, and I can say that collectively, we as a team, we felt that we were doing something good for the community, both communities, in playing and going out and playing to help put some of the tragedy behind. And so now I'm on the mound and I'm just trying to do the best possible job I can on that given day to get outs and give our team a chance to win. And Will he's going to be modest about this because he doesn't hear what's being said in the other clubhouse. But when his at bat comes, I'm as focused as I'm going to be against any hitter I've ever been. And Mike Moore is going to be the same. And Bobby Welch is going to be the same if he faces him, as well as Kurt Young. Where he hits in that lineup and what he represented for that team, because when he's not in that lineup's a different lineup, and they're a different team to face. He's going to get the best from any pitcher, any starting pitcher, whether it's the 1 or the 5. The 5 may only last 5 innings, and he might have only gotten 2 outs. but two of those outs are going to be Will Clark. So you turn it up a notch is what happens. And so, you know, when it's all said and done, we ended up winning it. But I think the real story is the healing of the community and hoping to help the healing of the community, bringing together a partnership of the two sides, having them work together to make things better around the communities, and and at the same time we get a chance to play a game that we love. You couldn't ask for very much more than that.
Wow, great way to wrap up a memorable trip down memory lane. I can't thank you guys. I could feel the respect and admiration between two of the greatest baseball players who've ever played in the Bay Area. I mean, you guys are on that list. Dave Stewart of the Oakland A's and Will Clark of the San Francisco Giants are two of the great icons in franchise history. So it's been a real pleasure to have you guys here at the Bay Area Sports Hall of Fame, San Francisco Chamber of Commerce. And I got to tell you, Mayor, you held your own pretty good. You did pretty good there, Mayor Agnos.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be. I can make believe I was a big leaguer for the past hour.
You were a big leaguer in your own right. So we definitely want to thank Mayor Art Agnos, World Series MVP and champion Dave Stewart, and of course the great Will Clark, who's going to have his number retired by the Giants. That's how good he was in the 1989 National League Championship Series MVP. We want to do a special thank you to everyone who joined us and support the mission of the Bay Area Sports Hall of Fame. And remember to save the date, October 14th, for the Bay Area Sports Hall of Fame Enshrinement Gala at the Westin St. Francis. Listen to these inductees, guys. Three-time World Series champion manager Bruce Bochy, Super Bowl champion from the 49ers Bryant Young, Olympic champion swimmer Natalie Coughlin, sailor Paul Kayard, and, Dave, a guy you know pretty well who might have helped you win a couple games, Ricky Henderson is going in too. So thanks to everyone. Thanks to this distinguished panel. And now we have an exciting opportunity drawing sponsored by Alaska Airlines and everyone's favorite hype guy, Franco Finn. So over to you, Franco.
Well, thank you, Brian. That was an amazing panel indeed. What a great night. And of course, this is my favorite part here. I mean, first off, I'm in front of the old Candlestick Park area, and I got to tell you, my favorite memories here, I mean, I can't even count how many memories, but I remember as a youngster watching my favorite San Francisco Giants. I'm talking about the Kevin Mitchell days, Will Clark, the Hum Baby days. That was my favorite whole moment, really, here in front of Candlestick Park. But I do remember the last and final San Francisco 49ers game played here. That was another memorable. I was actually there in person. And then, of course, my first Monday night football game was right here, too, at Candlestick Park. So from the Giants and the 49ers and all the great sports memories, I mean, this place is home. As a San Francisco native, hey, it's awesome. And I just love and miss the old Candlestick Park. But let me tell you, I want to thank, of course, our title sponsors, Bank of America, for making this all possible. And, of course, we want to thank our champ sponsor, good old Alaska Airlines, of course. I know a thing or two about Alaska, but I also want to thank KNBR, How Live TV, and the San Francisco 49ers for being great partners of our third and final BASHOF Online event. But now the moment we've been waiting for, a pair of tickets, anywhere Alaska Airlines flies. Here we go. Our winner here tonight at BASHOF Online is Teresa Gordillo. Congratulations to you, and thanks again for a wonderful night. And if you want to follow all the great things from the SF Chamber, make sure to go to sfchamber.com or follow us on social media. Thanks, everybody, and have a great night.